Welcome guys, this is your friend Naruto Addict 3.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was banished at age 7 and returned with Jiraiya's ultimate harem? Part 1. Let's start this fanfic. In a gloomy, dark bar in Tanzaku town, Tsunade, the last of the Senju, was celebrating. She had won so much money today at the gambling halls, that not only could she actually pay off her gambling debts, much to Shizune's pleasure, but she still had enough left over to drink herself silly, much to Shizune's current displeasure. Tsunade Haim, we really should go, I have a bad feeling about this. Shizune pleaded while trying to pull the mildly inebriated woman away from her sake. Come on, Shizune-chan, let me have a little fun. I haven't won this much in ages. Tsunade was gripping the tabletop so tightly that her fingers had accidentally cracked the wood. As she was chugging sake, she paused to think about what had happened the last time she won big. Well, not since before Nawa. Oh, crap. Tsunade suddenly cried, why didn't you say something earlier? We have to leave before something terrible happens. As Tsunade tried to stagger upright, a new voice called from the shadows behind her. I'm afraid you're too late for that, Haim, the newcomer said as he pushed Tsunade back into her chair. The stranger stepped into the light, revealing a large man easily a foot taller than Tsunade with his wooden geta, even taller if you counted his wild, spiky white hair, which he kept out of his face with a Hittite embossed with the kanji for oil. He was Jiraiya, the Gamma Sennin, and most unusually, his face showed barely contained rage. Jiraiya, what are you doing? Let me go immediately. Tsunade struggled to rise from her chair, but the enormous amount of sake she had drunk prevented her from actually standing. I'm sorry, Haim, but I need you to return to Konoha. Sensei's in a coma and my apprentice is on death's door, only you can save them now. Jiraiya was now in front of Tsunade, blocking her path to the door, with his arms crossed over his chest and a fearsome scowl on his face. Your apprentice and sensei. I don't care. Konoha doesn't deserve. Before Tsunade could finish her sentence, Jiraiya slammed his fists onto the table, causing the sake jugs to jump into the air, some breaking when they landed on the table, others rattling off the table and shattering on the floor. Konoha can burn. It came out as a snarl. Jiraiya had lost what little control he had, his face twisted into a fearsome visage of hate and anger, his eyes glowing with rage. Startled by his sudden fury and apparent hate for a place he had always protected from the shadows, Tsunade fell backwards over her chair in her haste to escape. Jiraiya, what happened to you? She whispered. Behind Jiraiya she saw the patrons of the bar running for their lives, leaving her alone to deal with the pissed of Sanin. This year Konoha hosted the Chunin exams. Tsunade, Jiraiya's cold tone and the lack of his usual Haim made her flinch. 4 days ago, during the third test, Suna and Odo invaded Konoha. They were led by Orochimaru Tem, and during the fight Sensei was trapped in a barrier with the Tem while my apprentice was lured away to fight the Sabaku no Gaara Jinchuriki of the Aikibi no Shukaku and Suna. My apprentice won but was injured during the fight. As Jiraiya paused for breath, Tsunade stood and sat back in her chair. And Sensei, how did he end up in a coma? Tsunade asked, curious, while stalling for time to try to figure a way to escape from her current predicament. I was getting to that. See, my apprentice saw the barrier go up before his fight with the Aikibi, and when it was over he rushed back to the arena without stopping to rest or even bandage his wounds. At these words Tsunade stopped to wonder just who this mysterious apprentice was, who was so reckless and foolish to go from one life or death struggle to another while possibly bleeding to death, without even trying to stop the bleeding. Fortunately he made it to the barrier in time to see the beginnings of the suicide jutsu Sensei was using. He managed to do something to disrupt barrier and get inside. He saved Sensei's life, but Sensei fell into a coma, probably because of the jutsu. What about your apprentice? Were his injuries from the Aikibi really so bad that you need me? Tsunade doubted that it was as simple as that. No. Actually, during his medical scan the medics found several deep tissue seals that are interfering with his recovery. I can't remove them until he's healed, but the surgeons claim they can't help him until I remove the seals. Deep tissue seals. How long were they there for? To prevent the medics from healing him. I mean, they'd have to be there for years to affect someone that much. A frown creased Tsunade's brow, as she stopped to ponder for a moment. Just how old is your student? I thought at first that you might be training Kakashi, but the seals would definitely have been noticed during his time in the Anbu. But, I can't think of anyone else you'd want to train. Lost deep in thought, she almost didn't hear Jiraiya clear his throat and continue. He's 12, almost 13. Before he could continue, Tsunade cut in. Why are you training the last of the Uchiha? I thought you hated training so-called geniuses. I am not training that Kami forsaken spoiled brat. And if you'd have let me finish my sentence, you would have realized that the last person he could be is Uchiha Sasuke. Jiraiya cut in with a grumble. As I was saying, I'm not sure if the surgeons are telling me the truth about not being able to treat him before I remove the seals, and after the third attempted poisoning in his meals I was tempted to raise the hospital and take him with me to get you. Tsunade was startled by the news that doctors and nurses in the Konoha hospital would try to kill someone who apparently saved them from a rampaging monster, as well as a giant tanuki. And you just left him there. Even after all those assassination attempts. That someone could actually leave someone they claimed to be trying to save in such a situation caused a look of disbelief to spread across Tsunade's face. Actually, I left Kakashi, Asuma and a squad of Anbu guarding him. Kakashi is his Jonin sensei and Asuma is sensei's son, so he should be safe until I get you back home tomorrow. What makes you think I'm coming back? Tsunade shouted at Jiraiya. I hate Konoha and I never want to see it again. Nothing is worth going there again. Before she could build up steam for her rant, Jiraiya held up a hand. Listen up, Senju, Jiraiya growled at Tsunade, dropping all pretenses and showing just how pissed off he really was. Danzo and the civilian council have already tried to order his execution 3 times since the battle, once every council meeting, and the only reason it hasn't happened already is the fact that the Shinobi Council is either terrified of what Sensei will do to them if they let the motion pass, or are trying to pay Naruto back for saving their. Danzo has already petitioned the council to make him Hokage. If he does get elected, then not only will he abduct and brainwash my apprentice and add him to the ranks of Root, but in less than a year the 4th Great Shinobi War will start because of the fool's obsession with war in the name of peace. So shocked by the use of her last name, Tsunade didn't even notice that Jiraiya let slip his apprentice's name. What do you expect me to do? Become Hokage? Because only fools want to become Hokage, and I have no intention of dying for Konoha, especially after what you told me. She was standing up now too, fists clenched at her side, her face red with anger instead of with drink. Even years out of practice, Tsunade angry was a sight to behold. Then you better hope that you can heal Sensei, because if anything happens to Naruto, anything at all, I will personally hunt you down and kill you with my own 2 hands. The killing intent Jiraiya radiated was so intense that Shizune was on the floor gasping for breath, and even Tsunade had fallen to her knees. Jiraiya, what happened to you? Tsunade thought as tears began to fall from her eyes. Didn't you say you loved me? What could have happened to make you so cruel? Jiraiya seemed to loom larger and larger over her. The light grew dim and soon all she could see was his silhouette, his eyes glowing in the dark. Then something clicked in her mind. Did he say Naruto was his apprentice? That cannot be a common name. Does he mean? As the light grew dim she managed to cough out, did you say Naruto? And as suddenly as it came the killing intent was gone, the lights back to normal and Jiraiya's face suddenly creased with worry. I'm sorry Haim, I was so upset about all this I forgot you didn't know who my apprentice was. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. I thought you were refusing to help him because you knew what burden he bears. He stepped forward to help Tsunade up. I'm sorry about losing it like that with you Haim. It's just, I've been dealing with Konoha and their stupid beliefs for almost 6 years now. And with Danzo, trying to kill him and planning to start a war, then finding out that I had missed those seals for 6 years, Sensei being in a coma, and the woman I love refusing to help, it was just too much in the end. Jiraiya sat down heavily, placed his head in his palms and wept. He wept for his godson who was hooked up to so many machines there was barely any space in his hospital room. He wept for his sensei that wouldn't wake up. And he wept for himself, afraid that he had lost everyone that mattered to him in less than a week. Tsunade was afraid. She had never seen Jiraiya like this before, so angry one minute, and weeping like a little girl the next. Not really knowing what to do, she placed her hands on his shoulders and said, "Why don't you tell me exactly what happened on the way back? After all, if I'm going to help anybody, I need to know the full story." Hearing this, Shizune had perked up. "Does that mean we're finally going back?" Yes it does. Now help me get Jiraiya up so we can get a move on." Brushing the last of the tears out of his eyes, Jiraiya gave Tsunade a watery smile. "Thanks, but I can stand on my own. We have to hurry back before something bad happens to him. I'll tell you the story while we move." As Jiraiya headed out the door, followed closely by Tsunade and Shizune, he said, "Well, I guess I should start on what most people would call the worst day of Naruto's life." Behind him, Shizune quirked an eyebrow. "Most people? What do other people think is his worst?" Jiraiya chuckled. "Actually, Naruto claims that it's the most important day of his life, which in some ways makes it the best day of his life. After all, he says, good doesn't have to be pleasant, and once you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up, right?" There was a slight pause as Jiraiya let his words sink in. "Well, I guess it all started the morning of Naruto's 7th birthday. The worst day ever. Well, I guess it all started the morning of Naruto's 7th birthday. Konoha. 5 years, 9 months, 6 days ago. It hurt. Oh Kami, it hurt. He had never felt like this before, never felt fear like this before, never felt pain like this before. Each movement was agonizing, kunai and shuriken scraping against bone, the head of a pitchfork in his shoulder, the glass bottle in his gut. Each breath was fire through 4 broken ribs, each awkward shuffling step was torture, the slash through his thigh had practically hamstrung him. But he couldn't stop. He could hear them gaining every second he was still. He could see the glow of their torches, hear the shouts and screams, the people crying for his blood, smell the sake on their breath, and once again the dizzying wave of terror descended upon him. He did the only thing he could. He ran. Naruto had been looking forward to this day for over a year. He was finally a whole 7 years old and he could finally buy himself a set of practice kunai and shuriken. He needed as much practice as he could. Next year he would finally be allowed to enter the ninja academy. Maybe if he was good enough, people would stop giving him those hateful looks. And there was going to be a festival tonight. Maybe if he was lucky, the matron at the orphanage would let him go and celebrate with everyone. Shikamaru had told him about it yesterday at the park. He liked Shikamaru. Shikamaru was too lazy to really hate anyone. Sometimes he would sit and watch clouds with him for hours. On days where he was really lucky, he would see Choji too. Choji would give him a few of his chips. He loved chips. He never got any snacks at the orphanage, and sit with them enjoying the breeze. Maybe he would see Shikamaru and Choji at the festival today. He couldn't wait. As those thoughts raced through Naruto's head, he bounded up the orphanage's back steps and rushed to the matron's office. Skidding to a stop just in front of her door, Naruto took a deep breath to calm himself, and politely knocked on the door. "Come in," the matron called out in a sweet voice. As Naruto timidly opened the door, the matron saw who it was. "Oh, it's you. What do you want, brat?" The matron was a large, friendly-looking woman, most of the time, but whenever she saw Naruto her voice grew cold, her eyes hard, and a deep scowl appeared on her face. Why you see, it's my birthday today and I heard that there's AFF festival TT tonight." Naruto stuttered out while the matron glared at him. Before he could continue, the matron interrupted, "I expect you want to go." "Well, I'm afraid that you aren't allowed to go. Besides, today is your chore day, as I'm sure you know." Naruto looked upset. "But everyone else gets their birthdays off, why can't I? If I really can't go to the festival, at least let me have the day off." Naruto pleaded, trying to look pitiful. "No. Now go before I make you scrub the bathrooms with your toothbrush again." At this threat Naruto went purple with rage. Why? It's not fair. I've been looking forward to this for a year. I saved every penny of allowance the Hokage gave me so I could get myself a birthday present. It's not fair. As Naruto ranted, the matron's face became colder and colder. Fine, she shouted, grabbing Naruto by the arm and dragging him through the orphanage to the front door. You want fair? I'll give you fair. I'll give you better than fair. I'll give you more than you deserve. Happy birthday, demon. She was screaming by the time she got to the front door. She pulled him to the edge of the step and kicked him as hard as she could in the gut, causing the young blonde to roll down the stone steps. You're not welcome here anymore, you demon. She turned around and slammed the door shut, making all the windows on the first floor rattle. At least let me get my stuff, whimpered Naruto from the bottom of the steps. It was too late. They had caught him on a rooftop. The two ninja following him had hit him with half a dozen kunai and shuriken. One kicked him in the stomach again. If he had eaten anything today, he'd have thrown it up by now. Hey, how much you wanna bet I can cut his leg off with one swing? One of the ninja asked. The other had an evil grin, splitting his face in half. 200 Ryo says you can't, as the first one drew his ninjutsu. He turned to the edge of the roof, trying to run away. He felt a searing pain across the back of his leg. He did the only thing he could. He jumped. Naruto was not having a good time. He was sore, hungry, and poor. He tried to see the old man to tell him what happened, but the receptionist said he was busy and wouldn't be able to see him for at least 3 days, and when Naruto tried to tell her it was urgent, she threatened to sick the Anbu on him. Wandering the streets wondering what he did to deserve this, especially on his birthday of all things, he hoped that he could see Shikamaru and Choji. Maybe they could help him. He wished that he knew where they lived. Maybe they'd help him. They were from clans, right? Big ones. They were even clan heirs. Surely they could help him, right? But no, he was tired and hungry. Maybe he would take a short nap here behind the ramen stand. It smelled so nice. Maybe if he was lucky there would be leftovers he could eat. Ramen was his favorite food. He never got it at the orphanage, but occasionally Gigi would take him out for lunch and he would always pick ramen. As he lay there, the world spun with each breath. He didn't know what was wrong with him, but the shouts from the rooftop 5 floors away brought his attention back to the present. He tried to stand, but his injured leg gave out immediately. As they climbed down and began looking for him, fear rose in his throat. He had to get away. He did the only thing he could. He crawled. Naruto awoke with a start. Someone was kicking him. What was that for? He cried. Today was just not his day. He lost his home, his money, he was beaten twice so far, and he was starving. Oi, demon, what do you think you're doing here? A large, grimy, and smelly man growled at him. Well, I was trying to rest, but you started kicking me in the stomach. Hey, do you know when the festival starts? Naruto's mind was prone to strange jumps of topic at the best of times, but he was tired, hungry, cold and sore, and didn't really care what other people thought of him right now. I hope to see my friends there, cuz I really need their help with something. Before Naruto could continue, the drunk kicked Naruto in the stomach. Demons don't have friends, brat. While Naruto was on the ground whimpering, the drunk took the last swig of sake from his bottle. Oh, I know, the drunk belched. Let's play a little game of tag. The drunk brought the now empty bottle down on Naruto's head. Kicking him into the street, the drunk bellowed. Looky, boys, I found us our very own fox. For our very own fox hunt. Run, little fox, run. Seeing the crowd of smelly drunks leering evilly at him, Naruto ran. It was no use, he couldn't move his body anymore. The evil men had surrounded him. They were kicking him and stabbing him. One pinned him to the ground with a pitchfork as another tried to gut him with a broken glass bottle. As the world faded and the lights dimmed, the jeering calls of the mob quieted into a gentle breeze and the blows softened until he could imagine them as soft raindrops. For a moment there was peace. And he did the only thing he could. He wept. And in the dark, something woke from its long slumber. Its bright red eye opened for the first time in 7 years. It did the only thing it could. It called. And the child answered. Naruto woke in what appeared to be a dark sewer. The water was barely an inch deep but rising rapidly. So, Ninjin, are you my jailer? Come to gloat have you? The deep voice reverberated through the tunnel. Struggling to stand, Naruto managed to raise himself onto his hands and knees. Looking ahead, Naruto saw the bars of a huge cage stretching from wall to wall and from floor to ceiling. In the darkness beyond the bars, Naruto could see a huge red eye glaring at him. I don't know who you are, where I am, what you want, or how I got away from the mob, but I would never lock someone away. As Naruto spoke, he dragged himself over to the cage. Wow, you're a big fox, you look like you could help me. Would you hide me from the evil men who want to kill me? Shouldn't you cower in fear before the mighty Kyuubi no Kitsune? The Kyuubi was puzzled. Never had anyone actually asked for its help. They either took his power from him or forced him to do their bidding. What's a Kyuubi? Are they strong? Naruto asked with a blank look. Very. I am the strongest Biju in all the land. The merest flick of my tails can level mounts and cause tsunamis. The Kyuubi bragged. Oh, good, then please hide me, Kyuubi-san. Naruto then did what many would call the stupidest thing possible. He dragged himself into the Kyuubi's cage. Stunned by this idiocy, the Kyuubi forgot to crush him like an ant and watched stunned as Naruto dragged himself over to its paw. You have very soft fur, Fox-san. I think I'll take a little nap here. Naruto latched onto the fox's leg, cuddling with it like it was a big pillow. The Kyuubi was in shock. He was the biggest, at least until the fourth sealed half of him away. Damn it, baddest, angriest thing on the face of the earth, and this little mortal brat was using him as a pillow. The Kyuubi's internal rant was cut off by the searing pain it suddenly felt blinking in the half-light of torches. It realized just why the brat had come into its cage to hide. As the Kyuubi looked out through Naruto's eyes, he found himself surrounded by 20 angry drunks with weapons, his body mangled. His chakra was too poisonous to use much of without killing the boy, and possibly himself, he wasn't sure. The Kyuubi pushed as much of its chakra into the boy's injured leg as he dared and stood shakily up. His eyes have gone red. One of the men shouted. The demon is getting loose, kill it quickly. The ninja with the sword drew his weapon and approached the panting red-eyed child. Cowards. It's almost dead. I'll cut its head off with one swing and be done with it. The Kyuubi moved Naruto's body with surprising speed, dodging the clumsy swing of the drunken Chunin. He grabbed the ninja's wrist and with a sharp twist broke it. Before anyone else could react, the Kyuubi grabbed the ninjutsu from the man's loosened grip and ran him through with it. Leaving the sword in the man's stomach, the Kyuubi jumped over the group and ran for it, ignoring as much of the pain and fear as it could. It hurt. Oh Kami, it hurt. He had never felt like this before, never felt fear like this before, never felt pain like this before. Each movement was agonizing, kunai and shuriken scraping against bone, the head of a pitchfork in his shoulder, the glass bottle in his gut. Each breath was fire through 4 broken ribs, each awkward shuffling step was torture, the slash through his thigh had hamstrung him. But he couldn't stop. He could hear them gaining every second he was still. He could see the glow of their torches, hear the shouts and screams, the people crying for his blood, smell the sake on their breath, and once again the dizzying wave of terror descended upon him. He did the only thing he could. He ran. On the road from Tanzaku town to Konoha, present day. You're kidding me. Tsunade yelled. The kid did what? Tsunade couldn't believe her ears. Sure, people did some stupid things trying to survive, but slipping into what was obviously a prison to cuddle with the giant furry demon fox was a whole other level of stupid. How did he survive that? And how did you get the fox to let go of his body? Asked Shizune. Well, Jiraiya continued, the fox managed to keep them busy for another 5 minutes or so, before me and the third managed to find him. Man, I've never seen Sensei so angry in all my life. Jiraiya was worried. Naruto, his 7-year-old godson, was missing, his room trashed, and no one claimed to have seen him today. At least there's no blood. That's a good sign, right? I should have taken him in when he was still a baby. How did I let Sensei talk me into leaving him at an orphanage so I could keep running my spy network? Jiraiya dropped from the roof of the orphanage into the enclosed backyard, where he had seen the matron playing with some of the children. "Excuse me, miss, have you seen Naruto, little blonde boy about this tall?" Jiraiya frowned at the look of disgust that flashed across the woman's face. "Naruto. There's never been a boy by that name here. Now, please excuse me, I have children to look after." Jiraiya grabbed the woman's shoulder. "Are you sure, miss? Never heard of Uzumaki Naruto. I'm sure the third would absolutely love to hear about this." Scowling, the woman grumbled, "I said there never was a boy named Naruto here. I didn't know you were looking for the demon too. Maybe if you hurry you'll be able to get some of the action. Last I heard it was giving the hunters quite the chase. Take what you want as a trophy, but I have dibs on its head. It'll look fabulous over my fireplace. Besides, I set up this little fox hunt, so it's mine by right as organizer," the woman said smugly, not noticing the look of shock and horror that was spreading across Jiraiya's face. "The entry fee for the hunt is 50,000 ryo, payable too." Before she could finish, Jiraiya sucker punched her in the gut, lifting her 3 feet off the floor. "That demoness, my godson," Jiraiya growled, "you're coming with me, bitch." With that, Jiraiya slung the unconscious woman, who was now foaming at the mouth, over his shoulder and shunshined away in a swirl of leaves. Skidding to a halt in front of the Hokage's tower, Jiraiya stormed into the reception area. "Get me Sensei and tell him it's about Naruto." The receptionist looked up from her work, actually a game of solitaire, barely lifting an eyebrow at the sight of a large man with a larger woman slung over his shoulder. "Hey, ninjas are weird. Naruto's already been here. I've set him up with an appointment in," she looks down at her appointment book, 2 weeks. Knowing him, whatever it is can wait. By this point Jiraiya was pissed, and as much as he hated the woman slung over his shoulder, this lazy bitch was now number 2 on his shit list. Seething with rage at the apathy that might have just cost him the closest thing he had to family, Jiraiya lashed out with a foot, catching the desk and flipping it over the receptionist's head and into the door behind her. Jiraiya stormed into the Sandaime Hokage's office. "Naruto's gone missing. Apparently a group of drunks decided to have themselves a fox hunt. After this whore," he spat, dropping the matron on the floor, decided that Naruto wasn't welcome at the orphanage anymore. Before he had finished speaking, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, was already pulling out his crystal ball, flashing through the hand seals and muttering the jutsu under his breath. "Something's wrong with his chakra, I can't find him." Flashing through another set of hand seals, Hiruzen readjusted his crystal ball's focus. Sighing with relief as the ball refocused with Naruto's distinctive orange jumpsuit swimming into view, the Hokage said, "He's still alive. The tracking seal I placed on him is still functioning." Trailing off, his eyes widened as the now Kyuubi-controlled Naruto struggled down an alleyway, his many wounds obvious. "Kami, Jiraiya, we have to hurry, he's already half dead." The Hokage cried as he jumped up and grabbed his robe and hat before leaping out of the window and running off, Jiraiya quickly catching up. "Why the hat, sensei?" Jiraiya questioned. Despite the urgency of the situation, he was genuinely curious as to why his sensei grabbed his hat before running off. "I want those responsible and all who witness to know what happens when you threaten one of Konoha's own. I'm not stopping them as Naruto's Jiji, Sarutobi Hiruzen, but as the Sandaime Hokage, whose job it is to protect those who live within Konoha's walls." For the first time in its long life, the Kyuubi was tired. It had learned much in its short time controlling Naruto's body. It had always known the feel of the hunt, but that was as the thrill of the hunter, not the terror of the hunted. It thought it had known pain, but compared to the boy's wounds, the ceiling was a bad sunburn. But the exhaustion it felt right now was something that the Kyuubi had never had experienced before. Its body was made of pure chakra, so it couldn't get tired, ever, but now he was tired. It had run as hard and as long as it could, but the boy's body couldn't take much more. It was taking all of the Kyuubi's impressive control just to remain upright and walking now. His vision was swimming from blood loss, so the Kyuubi didn't notice the alley he was in was a dead end and staggered into the back wall, knocking himself down in the process. After dragging himself upright, The Kyuubi looked towards the mouth of the alley only to see its only path of escape cut off by the mob. Shit. What a way to go, ninjan. The Kyuubi questioned. Not hearing a response, the Kyuubi looked into the seal. The Kyuubi saw that the mortal brat had moved from his wrist to the crook of his elbow and was gently snoring. How could those villagers confuse him with me? He looks about as threatening as a newborn kit. Unknown to the fox, a new emotion had filtered through Naruto into him. Curling up around the sleeping Naruto, the fox murmured aloud, "You're not bad for a mortal, Kit. I wish I could have done more for you, but if I used any more chakra, your chakra pathways would have exploded, kind of defeats the whole purpose." The fox placed a large hand over Naruto. "All I can do now is make sure you're comfortable when you die." In the physical world, Naruto's body collapsed against the wall, no longer having the strength to stand. Deciding that no one deserved to die alone, the fox prepared to enter Naruto's mindscape and the seal within. As his eyes were closing, two shapes blurred in front of him, one white and the other green. Blinking at the sudden intrusion, the fox wondered what was going on. Seeing the mob through the crystal ball and seeing them in person were two very different things. Through the ball you couldn't smell the blood and fear from Naruto, or the sake and smoke from the mob. The way they had landed caused Jiraiya to be in front, with the Hokage standing in his shadow, barely visible to the mob. "Oi, who do ye think ye are?" The leader of the mob slurred. "This the demon fox is. Jay, out o' our way, we needs to kill it. We'll be arrows, get medals and everything." Despite the gravity of the situation, the man had asked who he was, and it was polite to tell people the name of the person who killed them. Besides, his introduction annoyed people, and annoying people was always a good way to start the fight. Slamming his palms on the ground, he summoned Gamma underneath him. As soon as he summoned Gamma, the Kyuubi went back into the seal momentarily and woke Naruto up. "Hey, Kit, wake up. You don't want to miss this." Rubbing his eyes groggily, Naruto asked, "What's going on?" Smirking, the Kyuubi pulled Naruto up so he could see through his eyes again, while trying to do his best to protect Naruto from the excruciating pain his body was in. After all, this looked promising, and who would want to miss something like this because you had a dozen kunai lodged in your back? Jiraiya and Gamma fell into their favorite poses. "Thanks for asking." Mount Myoboku's Gamma Sennin, member of the legendary Sannin, the gallant Jiraiya. Pausing momentarily to enjoy the confused looks on their faces, Jiraiya continued, "You'd better remember it because it's the last thing you'll ever hear. The smarter ones were already trying to run." "Oh, no you don't." Gamayuden, toad oil bullet. Jiraiya sprayed the mob, including those trying to escape, with thick, slimy oil, immobilizing them for what was to come. Stepping to the sides to the mob and the large number of people gathered around them to watch, from a reasonable safe distance. After all, ninja were dangerous, and the one with the frog claimed to be the gallant Jiraiya, could see just who was standing behind him. The whispers started when they saw the Hokage. "It's the Hokage, we're saved." "No, you fool, he has a soft spot for the demon." "What's he gonna do? Arrest us? The council hates the demon more than we do. We'll get off with a fine. Hell, they'd give us medals if the demon kicked it." "Oh man, I knew this was a bad idea, we're so dead." "Danzo-sama, I have failed you," one in the back whispered. Jiraiya made a mental note to keep a closer eye on the old warhawk, despite the anger clouding his vision. "I, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage, after hearing the confessions of the accused, sentence you to immediate execution for the crimes of assault and battery, attempted murder of a minor, attempted murder of a clan heir, attempted murder of a clan head, attempted genocide of a clan, violation of an S-class secret, and child abuse." The silence was deafening. Then the screams started. "What clan? He's an orphan." One shouted. Another cried, "Genocide. There's only one of him." As the screams got louder, more and more people gathered on the roofs and across from the alley, watching and waiting to see how the Sandaime would carry out his orders of execution. "Silence." Hiruzen bellowed. "I believe most of these crimes are self-explanatory and obvious. However, let it be known that not only is Uzumaki Naruto the last known Uzumaki of Uzu no Kuni, he is the direct descendant of the last clan head, which while technically only a clan heir, crimes against him are legally judged as if they were made against a clan head. And yes, he said, turning to the man who had claimed that, there's only one of him, there is only one of him, that's what, the last of the Uzumaki, means. If you kill him there will be no more of them, ever, which is genocide. Hiruzen snarled. And, now it's time for your sentence to be announced, death by burning. Bringing up his hands he began the seals slowly and carefully announcing each one as he made it: ram, horse, snake, dragon, rat, ox, tiger, Kaden, Karyuenden, fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. Most of the ninja watching had backed up a good distance by the third seal, all but the most moronic civilians had backed up by the last. The screams and smell of burning were horrible, even some of the ninja watching turned green and many civilians had emptied the contents of their stomachs. But long before the screams had died down, Jiraiya and Hiruzen had gathered up the barely conscious Naruto, Kyuubi and Sunshine to the Konoha General Hospital. We need a surgeon in a private room now, this is an S-ranked mission, pay to be received on successful rehabilitation of the patient. After what he witnessed tonight, the Hokage had no faith in the people of the village when it came to Naruto. So he appealed to the one thing he knew would work, their greed. Sitting in the operating room, watching as the surgeons bustled around Naruto while nearly panicking at the state he was in, whether it was from concern the well-being of the patient or their wallets, Jiraiya wasn't sure. It was a long night for both Jiraiya and the Hokage. Inside Naruto's mind, so you're the reason why everybody hates me. What did you do to piss them off so badly? Naruto and the fox were sitting in the seal talking about things while they waited for Naruto's body to be healed enough for Naruto to ask the Hokage questions about his past and his family. Even if he was the last one, he wanted to learn all about them. The Kyuubi had offered to tell him, but Naruto wanted the old man to explain why he hadn't told him about his clan. So, instead they were talking about why the village hated him so much and how the fox had gotten sealed inside him. Well, when you were born the seal that kept me and your mother weakened enough for me to try to escape. Naruto interrupted loudly with, wait, you knew my mother? Wait. You were sealed inside her too. You didn't know. I never really talked to her much. She had me sealed up tighter than a miser's purse, so I don't know much about her or your father. But the Hokage definitely knows. Add that to the list of questions you want to ask him. Anyway, Kit, don't you want to hear the test of the story? Naruto made a zipping motion over his lips and sat at attention, eyes shining with curiosity. Chuckling, the Kyuubi continued, no interruptions or I won't finish the story. Where was I? So yeah, I felt the seal weakening and tried to make my escape, 'cause her seal made yours look like a day at the beach. I'm not sure how it happened, but while I was struggling, some dude in a cloak and a funny mask actually pulled me from the seal. Before I could even blink he activates his Sharingan and used a genjutsu, because the next thing I knew half the village was destroyed and the fourth had summoned me to the woods where he stole my yang chakra, sealed it in the Shinigami. I'll admit before he dumped my yin chakra and my mind into you I tried to kill you because I hadn't been free since your village was founded. And it's always so hard to think when I'm not inside a physical body. But he and your mother blocked my claw with their bodies before finishing the sealing. That's the last thing I really remember before waking up during your fight. Scratching his head, the Kyuubi paused for a moment. Sorry about trying to kill you like that. My chakra is pretty potent and angry. It's always so hard to think straight without a flesh and blood body shielding my mind. So, any questions? Just one. What's your name? I mean, it's rude to keep calling you Fox, and Kyuubi is just a title, so do you have a name? If you don't I can try to give you one. Naruto said cheerfully. After stopping to think for a moment the Kyuubi decided to speak. You're the first person to ask for my name since it was given to me. My name is Kurama. Pleased to meet you. Uzumaki Naruto. Likewise. Naruto said, offering his tiny hand to Kurama. Chuckling, Kurama held out his pinky for the boy to shake. Now get some rest, we have a busy day tomorrow. The next morning, Jiraiya woke with a start. Something was wrong with Naruto, he could tell. Shaking his sensei, awake he turned to see Naruto staring at him with bright red eyes. We need to talk before the kid wakes up. Before the kid, Jiraiya's eyes widened in panic. He rushed to Naruto's bed and yanked his shirt up. Sighing in relief at what he found, Jiraiya turned to the Hokage. The seal's fine, but how is the fox talking? I'm right here, Ninjin, I can hear you. Kurama growled. Sensei, have you ever heard of a Jinchuriki's seal acting like this? Ignoring the Biju, Jiraiya turned to the Hokage, because I've never even heard a rumor that such a thing was possible. Kurama used a brief flash of killing intent to catch the attention of the two old men. Ignoring me is. Before he could finish, the widow shattered and a tall silver-haired man barreled into the room. The man was dressed in the standard Anbu uniform, black shinobi pants under knee-high shinobi sandals, a sleeveless turtleneck under a gray flak jacket, long black gloves that came up to mid-bicep under gray forearm protectors, and a white porcelain mask, his mask patterned after a wolf. His long-handled Anbu sword was held in a reverse grip and his left eye was glowing red in the shadows behind his mask. I sensed the Kyuubi's killing intent from the building across the street. I came as fast as I could. Is Naruto alright? The masked ninja sounded bored out of his mind, but the man's tense shoulders gave away his nerves. Stand down, Inu. We were trying to figure out what had happened to Naruto when you burst through the window like that. Seemingly forgotten, Kurama's eyebrows twitched. You could just ask me, you know. I am still here. Inu jumped at the deep, almost demonic, voice coming from the 7-year-old boy. What's going on, Hokage-sama? Palming his face, Hiruzen said, how about we let the fox tell us exactly what's going on, since he seems so eager to share. Finally, if the kid didn't like you so much, and we were actually able to move, I'd have turned you two into grease stains on the walls, and floor, and ceiling, for ignoring me like that. The fox grumbled, momentarily forgetting why he was even bothering to talk to these two. You wanted to know what happened last night, right? Well, to start, the kid is the either stupidest, or the craziest being ever, followed closely by your villagers. The Kyuubi began to explain how Naruto was thrown out of the orphanage, attacked, and nearly killed over the course of 10 hours. At this point, Inu interrupted, I told you Naruto should have always had an Anbu bodyguard. With his face in his hands, the Hokage said, I'm sorry, Inu, I promise you after this I'll always have an Anbu escorting him wherever he goes. In fact, I'm willing to offer you the mission, long term, and make it S rank. Now Inu wasn't a greedy person, unless a certain series of orange-covered books were involved. He would have taken the mission even if it was only B or C rank, but seeing as the author of his favorite series in the room, he decided to charge a little extra. I'll do it, but I want an autographed copy of every book in the Ika Ika Paradise series, and an advance copy of each new book, also autographed. Both the Hokage and Jiraiya sweat dropped at this. You realize, Jiraiya said slowly, in the tone of voice one uses for small children and the mentally challenged, that with the amount of money you'd get from a long-term S rank, you could buy 1,000 sets of my books, right? Ahem, the Kyuubi interrupted, don't you want to actually know what happened? At this rate, the kid's going to wake up long before I finish what I have to say. Launching back into the story, Kurama continued with how, half dead, Naruto had entered his mindscape, and actually crawled into the seal, and how Kurama kept him alive until the Hokage and Jiraiya showed up. Now that that's over, let's get to the reason I'm actually talking to you. The kid has a mile-long list of questions about his family. Answer them, or I will. I'm giving you this chance to make it up to him, don't waste it. Kurama paused for a second, his eyes glassing over. Seems the kid is waking up. Remember what I said. Morning, Gigi. Who are the other two old guys with you? Naruto yawned and stretched, his eyes still red, showing that the Kyuubi was indeed listening in. Oi brat, I'm only 21. Who are you calling old? Inu grumbled. Blinking at this new piece of information, Naruto replied, really? Only 21? But your hair's already gray and everything. Eyebrows twitching behind his mask, Inu said, I'm going to pretend you didn't call my very clearly silver hair, gray and call me old because of it. It would make a terrible impression to kill my new charge, especially in front of my bosses, less than a minute after I met him. Whatever. Gigi, I have a ton of questions for you. Last night you said I had a clan and that I was a direct descendant of the last clan head. Does that mean you know who my parents were? Why didn't you tell me about my parents? What about Kurama? Did you know about him too? What was my clan good at? Where were they from? Why does no one know about them? Was the matron telling the truth when she said that my parents abandoned me because I was a demon? Do I have any family left? Kurama said you knew who my father was, why didn't you ever tell me? Naruto was babbling with excitement by the end of his mental list. Easy Naruto, one thing at a time. Technically, you're the sole surviving member of 2 clans. I only told them about you being a member of the Uzumaki clan last night because that's not a secret. And yes, I know who your parents are. I'm sorry I haven't told you yet, but it's an S-ranked secret. I had planned on telling you when you became a Chunin or turned 18, whichever came first, but I will tell you today. Your father founded a clan 2 years before you were born. Unfortunately, he died the night you were born, as did your mother, so your clan never really got past 1 member. Your father was known for his ability to create new techniques, and his love of experimenting with existing jutsu, so I guess you could say that it's your father's clan specialty. Now the Uzumaki were known for 3 things. Their incredible longevity, members living to see their 200th birthday was commonplace. Another thing they were well known for was their skill in fuinjutsu. The art of sealing an Uzumaki sealmaster with time to prepare was one of the most feared things in the elemental nations. There seemed to be nothing they couldn't do. In fact, their fearsome reputation was one of the main reasons Uzu no Kuni was wiped off of the map during the Third Great Shinobi War. The final thing they were known for was their high levels of yang chakra, which they used to create physical chains of chakra to attack and bind things. Your father's clan was from Konohagakure, and your mother's was from Uzushiogakure, the village hidden in the whirling tides, the hidden village of Uzu no Kuni, the land of whirlpools. Now I have no idea who or what Kurama is, but your parents never abandoned you. They both died the night the Kyuubi was sealed inside you. Did that answer all of your questions? No, you never told me if I have any family left, or why no one remembers such a famous sounding place like Uzu no Kuni. Oh, and Kurama's mad at me. Apparently you don't deserve to know his name, and he's sulky. I am not sulking brat. Temporarily stunned by the Kyuubi's interruption, Inu was the first to react. The Kyuubi has a name. Why doesn't anyone know it? He asked, perplexed. Bleg, that was weird, it felt like my tongue tied itself in a knot. Naruto complained, making weird noises with his tongue, like he was trying to get peanut butter off the roof of his mouth. Technically all of Konoha remembers Uzu no Kuni. Our Chunin and Jonin wear the Uzumaki clan symbol on the back of their flak jackets. None of the ninjas talk about it because we are ashamed that we failed our longtime allies in their hour of need. By the time our ninja forces got to Uzushiogakure, it was already destroyed. Now to answer your last question, before I move on to your parents, yes, you have one known relative on each side of your family. Oddly enough, it's the same person, Senju Tsunade, granddaughter of Senju Hashirama, the Shodai Hokage. She is your first cousin once removed on your mother's side of the family. Your great-grandfather's sister on your mother's side was Uzumaki Mito, wife of the Shodai Hokage. Your father's side of the family is a little more complicated. Technically, he was an orphan, but we did some research into his family before he started a clan. His family was distantly related to the Senju as well, which makes Tsunade your 3rd or 4th cousin, I can't remember which. Jiraiya frowned at this. Wait, this brat's related to Tsunade Haim twice. Does she even know? Why are you letting his closest relative run around Hai no Kuni drunk off her? Yes, no, and because currently she's mentally unfit to raise a child. The loss of Dan and Nawaki extinguished her will of fire. Now Naruto, before I tell you your parents' names, you must know that this is an SS class secret, and you may not tell anyone without my direct approval before you reach the rank of Jonin. Swear this to me now and then I will tell you your parents' names. Naruto was upset. Why should I have to promise not to tell anyone my parents' names? Did they do something bad? The Hokage shook his head. No, Naruto, your parents were heroes, but they made many enemies. If word got out, to say Iwa or Kumo, you would have S-ranked ninjas trying to kill you on a regular basis. It was for your own safety that we did not tell you who your parents were. So, promise me, Naruto, that you won't tell anyone. I promise, Gigi. Naruto swore as solemnly as he could. Please, who are my parents? The third stroked his beard for a moment. That's good enough for me. Your mother was Uzumaki Kushina, the Akai Chishio no Habanero, red hot-blooded habanero, and former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Your father was Namikaze Minato, Konoha's Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash, the Yondaime Hokage, and the man who sealed the Kyuubi in you after it escaped its prison. Naruto's eyes were as wide as saucers. His parents were heroes. Famous ones. His biggest hero, the man he dreamed of surpassing, was his father. He'd never been so happy. So he did the one thing his brain was capable of handling. He fainted. Jiraiya stood up and walked over to the unconscious boy. I wonder, he muttered, pulling Naruto's eye open to see if his eyes were still red and silted like the fox's. What he saw was definitely not what he expected. Instead of the bright cerulean blue Naruto's eyes were normally, there was now a band of light purple around a contracted pupil. That color looks familiar. If I could only remember where I saw it last, he wondered. So, I'm related to the little brat. And sensei never told me. Just because I have a little drinking problem? Tsunade demanded. Come on, even if you don't want me to raise him, you could at least let me know I have some family left. I'm going to wake him from his coma just so he'll know why I'm punching him through a wall. Tsunade had been ranting since Jiraiya stopped to catch his breath. Jiraiya chuckled. Yeah, I was surprised too. Jiraiya agreed. Since we've stopped, do either of you have any questions? Shizune raised her hand. I do. What happened to his eyes? Well, Jiraiya began, scratching the back of his head, it's kinda hard to explain without giving away half the story. It took us a few years to figure out exactly what had happened to his eye. At first we thought it was a new Kekkei Genkei. We called it the Nishikime, two-tone eye, dichromatic eye. I'm sure Kurama knew exactly what it was from day one, but he enjoyed our confusion, damn sadistic fox. So, Tsunade interrupted, what did it do? Jiraiya chuckled. Don't ask, half the fun is in the surprise. Now where was I? Konoha. 5 years, 8 months, 29 days ago. Naruto was going stir-crazy. He'd been trapped in this hospital bed for a whole week. After he tried to escape for the third time the first day, they actually tied him down. And Kurama was no help. He was laughing his fuzzy off inside Naruto's head, apparently enjoying the sight of his jailer imprisoned. All he would say was, complain to me after you've been locked up for 150 years. To pass the time, Naruto had started reading Fuinjutsu for Dummies, or How to Make a Storage Seal with All Your Fingers Intact by the gallant Jiraiya. It was the first in a series of Fuinjutsu instruction manuals. It was complicated stuff. Even the most basic seal gave Naruto a headache, but Naruto swore that he would become the greatest seal master ever. After all, both his parents were seal masters. It was in his blood, and he would get there even if it killed him. He really wanted to start making a seal, but Jiraiya took one look at his handwriting and said, even if you made the seal perfectly, your handwriting is so bad, all it would do is explode in your face. I'll get you a calligraphy writing set, but no chakra inks until I say so. And if I catch you trying to make a seal unsupervised, chakra ink or not, by the time I'm done with you, you'll wish the seal blew up in your face. So Naruto had read, with some help from Inu, who was appalled that no one had actually tried to teach him to read, and impressed with how much Naruto had managed to teach himself, through 3/4 of the book and made his handwriting almost legible. But right now all Naruto wanted to do was get out of this place. Although he wasn't sure where he'd go when he got out, he felt anything would be better than the stupid hospital. Let me out of here. I am so bored. I'll get you for this. I'll prank you so hard you're great and kids will feel it. Naruto had been shouting similar threats for the last 2 hours. Inu was sitting in the corner reading from a small orange book, apparently oblivious to the racket the blonde was making. Alright, the doctors say that if you can keep shouting like that for 2 hours straight, then you're fit enough to go home, Jiraiya grumbled as he walked into the room. We got what was left of your stuff from the orphanage. The Hokage bought an apartment for you, I bought you some furniture, and Inu over there, he pointed at the silent man in the corner, who looked up at the sound of his name and gave Naruto a cheery wave, bought you some books, although most of them will have to wait until you're 18. Inu snickered at this, those are the good ones. The lanky man stood up and stretched, come on Jiraiya-sensei, tell the brat the good news so we can head out. I hate hospitals. I was getting to that, brat. Jiraiya turned to Naruto with a large grin spread across his face. Now here's the best bit. After what happened to you on your birthday, the Hokage decided to place you in the care of some people he trusts, namely myself and Inu. Now, we both have jobs that can take us away from Konoha for weeks at a time, so we've set up a schedule. I'll take care of you for 2 weeks, 1 week we share, 2 weeks Inu watches you, then 1 week we share again. As he was talking to Naruto, he was unsealing the straps around Naruto's ankles, thighs, waist, chest, wrists, elbows, and head. Wow, you must be quite the escape artist for them to tie you down like this, he said as he helped Naruto take off the stiff mittens they had placed on his hands. These things weigh a ton. Jiraiya was pretty impressed. Even insane shinobi didn't have to be locked down like that. The kid was stubborn, you had to give him that. As soon as Jiraiya had unsealed the last strap, Naruto bolted straight out the window and ran for his life. Closing the book, Inu sighed, he doesn't know where the apartment is, does he? Sighing once more at the sight of Jiraiya shaking his head, Inu jumped out after Naruto. Free at last! Free at last! Naruto shouted, running and jumping through the town square. No more stuffy room. No more nasty food. Freedom. Woohoo! As he was jumping and spinning, a hand caught him by the shoulder. Looking up, Naruto could see that it was Inu, and judging by the man's body language, he was not happy with him for having run off. Next time, at least make sure you know where you're going when you make your escape. Naruto could practically hear the sound of Inu's eyes rolling behind his mask. Come with me, Inu said as he shunshined away with Naruto's shoulder firmly in his grasp. Whoa, everything's spinning. Inu Oji-san, how were you moving that fast? Naruto was staggering around in circles in the living room of the apartment the Hokage had bought him. Don't barf, we spent all day yesterday cleaning this place up for you. Inu said as he casually tripped Naruto on his way to an armchair so that he could continue reading. We need to wait for Jiraiya-sensei before we discuss your training. Inu said while Naruto rolled around on the floor cursing him. Popping up so fast even Inu had a hard time seeing him move. Naruto was vibrating with excitement. Training? What kind of training? Will you teach me really cool jutsus? Or some awesome taijutsu moves? Maybe more about seals? Tell me, tell me, tell me. Naruto was hopping up and down on the spot, eyes as wide as they could go. Quiet, brat, Jiraiya said as he knocked Naruto upside his head. We're going to start simple with the 3 academy jutsu, the kawarimi, the henge, and the bunshin. The leaf-sticking chakra control exercise, the basic academy taijutsu style, until we know what your strengths are and find you a style that matches. How to recognize and break genjutsu, and some slightly more advanced fuinjutsu training. Oh, and copious amounts of physical exercise, of course. Naruto gulped at the last bit, he didn't think Jiraiya would make the exercise any fun. We'll start every day at 6 in the morning at Training Ground 7 for physical exercise, 2 hours of actual exercises and 2 hours taijutsu training. After that comes 4 hours of chakra exercises, 2 hours of control and 2 hours practicing the academy jutsu. Then we'll have 2 hours of fuinjutsu training, followed by 2 hours of genjutsu training. We'll be doing this routine 5 days a week and the 6th day will be focused on testing what you've learned that week. We'll keep this regime for the next year. If you do well, and have enough chakra, I'll teach you a jutsu that will let you keep up your training during your academy years. Remember, no matter how well you do, I won't let you graduate early because the 4 years you spend in the academy is very important to your social development. Today, after we unpack your stuff and set up your room, we'll be going over your fuinjutsu to see exactly how much work you need to do. Naruto gulped 12 hours of training a day. He could already picture how much pain he'd be at the end of each day. After spending the next 2 hours arranging and rearranging his room until it was perfect, Naruto got out his calligraphy set and did the handwriting exercises to show to Jiraiya. Well, it's a start. I can actually read what you wrote now. Tomorrow we can really start your fuinjutsu training. Now Brad, do you know how to access your chakra yet? Seeing Naruto shake his head, Jiraiya continued. Well, start with a half ram seal, like this. Jiraiya demonstrated the correct hand seal. No, not like that, like this. Jiraiya corrected Naruto's hand seal. Your fingers are too stiff, relax. Much better. Now look inside yourself. You should feel something, some kind of energy. It feels different to each person. His hand still held in the half ram position, Naruto closed his eyes, expecting to find the energy right away. He was disappointed when he felt nothing, and as he searched, he grew more and more panicked. Just as he was about to give up, he saw flashes of light in the distance. As he grew closer to the lights, he saw a huge, almost flat, wall of clouds stretching into the darkness around him. He had technically found the energy at the very beginning. After all, he had done exactly what Jiraiya had told him to do. He had fallen into the center of his Po. Was it his fault that he had landed in the eye of the storm? Naruto. Naruto. That's enough, you're burning the floor. Blinking, Naruto came out of his trance. Heh. Sorry about that, it took me a little while to realize I had found my power. Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Kid, just how do you miss that much power? Jiraiya looked at Naruto with disbelief. Well, the center of my power was empty. It was pitch black with a smattering of stars overhead. But I saw a flash of light out of the corner of my eye and headed towards it, and eventually I saw in the distance a huge wall of clouds. There was thunder, lightning, wind and rain. It was beautiful. In his head, Jiraiya was impressed. Naruto's power took the form hurricane, which spoke of a strong affinity for wind, water and lightning. Then there was the fact that he had found his power instantly, and on his first try. The kid had real talent. It was shame he was as dumb as a box of rocks. Reaching into his pocket, Jiraiya took out a piece of chakra paper. I had intended to save this for later, but after what I just heard, I have a theory that I want to test. Here, take this and channel some chakra into it. Looking at him as if he were mad, Naruto took the paper from Jiraiya and did as the Sennin said. Naruto yelped in surprise as the paper he held shredded itself into 10 pieces. Then the pieces crinkled into little balls. Naruto bent down to pick up one of the pieces. Hey, it's soaking wet. Heh, looks like I was right. It seems like you have a strong wind and water affinity, and a decent lightning affinity. Having 3 affinities is quite rare. I can only think of 1 or 2 ninja with 3 affinities, most people only have 1. Really? How many do you have? Which one is it? Naruto asked. Believe it or not, I have the 2 you don't have, earth and fire. Inu is one of the ninja I know of with 3. He has lightning, water, and earth. Now before you ask, not having an affinity doesn't mean you can't use jutsu from that affinity. Inu over here is quite skilled with fire jutsu, but he's had to work a lot harder to get as good as he is with them. Now go to bed. We have a busy day tomorrow and you'll need all the sleep you can get. And he was right. By the end of the day, every muscle in Naruto's body felt like it was on fire. If anything, the next day was worse. Naruto barely managed to crawl into bed that night. But the third day was better. Naruto still hurt all over, but the individual exercises were less painful. And so it went for the next 6 months. Each day Naruto got a little better, and eventually he moved from the leaf-sticking exercise to the tree-walking exercise. He had learned the henge almost immediately, and the kawarimi soon after. But try as he might, he was getting nowhere with the Bunshin no Jutsu. His Fuinjutsu had improved by leaps and bounds. He could make basic storage seals and he could make functional, if unpredictable, explosive tags. Jiraiya discovered that while Naruto had a lot of potential for genjutsu, his control was so horrible that making them was almost impossible. Plus, he was so thick that the first time he was placed in one he didn't notice for 6 hours. Eventually, Jiraiya taught Naruto 3 elemental jutsu, one for each of his elements: Fuden, Daitapa wind release, Great Breakthrough Suiden, Suban water release, Water Whip, and Raiden, Seidenki Shogeki lightning release, static shock. And while he enjoyed learning them more than the Academy 3, his chakra control was pretty poor and he had a tendency to overdo the jutsus all the time, leaving him exhausted by the end of the day. During this time he finally learned Inu's name, which was Hatake Kakashi. Naruto also learned that Kakashi was one of his father's students and Kakashi promised him that when he graduated he would teach Naruto some of his father's techniques. Whoa, don't stop there. It was just getting good. Tsunade grumbled, who had become genuinely interested in the brat's story. Jiraiya had decided to stop and scout out a suitable camping location. They had been traveling for a few hours already and as it had already been dark when they left it was almost midnight. The next morning Tsunade, who had taken last watch, woke Jiraiya up by kicking him in the ribs. It's morning. Get up and get on with the story, you evil bastard. Ugh, woman, I think you cracked my ribs. You could have just shaken me awake. I took middle watch, couldn't you let me have another hour of sleep? The sun's not even up yet. Indeed, the sky was gray with pre-dawn light and they weren't due to start traveling for another hour. Just shut up and tell the story. Jiraiya decided that even her interest in the story wouldn't save him if he pointed out the contradiction in that statement. Alright, get Shizune and I'll pick up where I left off. Konoha. 5 years, 2 months, 11 days ago. Naruto and Kakashi had just got to Training Ground 7 when it happened. The training ground filled with a thick white fog, and a voice echoed from around them: 8 fatal targets: larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular vein, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Which one should I kill you with? Shit. This is the Kurigakure no Jutsu. Kakashi was worried. He was almost certain the person was an assassin after Naruto, which meant that the user of this jutsu was skilled in the silent killing technique. Kakashi grabbed Naruto by his shoulder. Naruto, on the count of 3, I want you to fire a Daitapa directly ahead of you, Kakashi whispered into the blonde's ear. 1, 2, 3, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Fuden. Daitapa. The two techniques collided with each other, the wind feeding the flames until the fireball had reached humongous proportions. The heat from the flames evaporated the mist, revealing a large pale man with his Hittite sideways, the lower half of his face hidden by bandages, striped gray-blue pants, black and white camouflage patterned leg and arm warmers, and a belt over his shoulder which was used to hold the mammoth Zanbeitu he held casually over his shoulder. Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the hidden mist. I heard you became a missing nin, what are you doing all the way out here? As Kakashi entered his combat stance he lifted his Hittite to reveal his Sharingan. Copycat Ninja Kakashi, what an unpleasant surprise. I'm going to have to renegotiate my price for killing the boy. As he was speaking the mist was slowly getting thicker. Suddenly charging forward, Zabuza swung his sword, the mighty Kubikiribocho decapitating carving knife, executioner's blade, directly at Naruto, who was frozen in fear. Kakashi managed to intercept the blow with a kunai, which Kubikiribocho immediately began to cut through. You can't beat me with just a kunai, Kakashi. Zabuza said while increasing the weight he put behind his sword. Good thing I have more than a kunai. Kakashi kicked Zabuza in the gut, sending him flying backwards a few feet. Kakashi charged, getting inside Zabuza's guard, using the Kubikiribocho's massive size against Zabuza. Keeping up with Zabuza with his Sharingan, Kakashi's punches and kicks flew with blinding speed. Unfortunately, Kakashi didn't realize he was pushing Zabuza towards the small stream that bordered the training ground. Not bad, but you're still going to die. Taking a deep breath and making the tiger hand seal, Zabuza continued his attack. Sweden, Teppadama, water release. Gunshot spitting several blasts of water at Naruto, he forced Kakashi to move to intercept them, giving him enough time and room to gather water for a slightly larger attack. Sweden, Suihachi, water release, water bowl. Using the high-powered jet of water spraying from his palm to force Kakashi farther away from Naruto, allowing Zabuza to begin his third attack. Sweden, Subin, water release. Water whip. Firing 3 whips at Kakashi, Zabuza used the momentary distraction to charge in close and try to decapitate the copy ninja. But, just as he raised his sword, a flying ball of orange slammed into his side. So instead of taking Kakashi's head off in one swipe, the sword just bit into his side, injuring Kakashi but not killing him outright. Naruto, run to the Hokage's office, I'll hold him off as long as I can. Hell no. There is no way I'm leaving you here, Kakashi Oji-san. I can fight too. Fuden. Daitapa. Unfortunately, instead of the huge blast of air Naruto had fired earlier, this one was barely more than a sneeze. Zabuza barely had to move to dodge the attack. Zabuza countered his attack with a roundhouse kick that cracked Naruto's ribs and sent him crashing into a tree. As Naruto was sent flying, Kakashi broke free from the water whips. Tired and bleeding heavily, Kakashi used the last of his energy to charge up a Chidori and rush at Zabuza. Unfortunately, the blood loss and the onset of chakra exhaustion were setting in, so instead of impaling Zabuza through his heart, he gave Zabuza a wound on Zabuza's left side to mirror his own wound on the right. Clutching the wound on his left side, Zabuza looked down at the unconscious ninja. What the hell was that? 10 feet away Naruto was coming too, and part of him would have rather stayed unconscious. His right eye, the one with the purple ring around the pupil, felt like someone had stabbed him in the eye with a kunai. His vision swam, strange colors swirling in the air. He felt something warm and wet, like tears but sticky, flowing from his eye. Rubbing it off of his face, he looked at his hand and realized he'd been crying tears of blood. That can't be healthy, Naruto thought. Trying to focus on what was in front of him, he saw Kakashi on the ground and Zabuza standing over him, one arm clutching his side, the other holding his sword over Kakashi. As he swung his massive sword, Naruto stretched his hand out, wishing there was something he could do. Suddenly, his chakra flared and Kakashi flew through the air to Naruto's outstretched hand. Growling, Zabuza turned to the bleeding blonde, who was gasping from the sudden loss of chakra and the stabbing pain in his eye. Nice trick, kid, but that only bought you a few more seconds to live. Remembering the desire he had to bring Kakashi to him and the feeling of his chakra flowing through his eye, Naruto inverted it, and prayed to Kami that it would work. Naruto clapped his hands and focused as much chakra as he could into the move. The results, to say the least, were surprising. Everything in a 60-degree arc in front of him had been uprooted and hurtled away. Blinking as his vision swam, Naruto stared at the devastation in front of him. Everything for a quarter-mile seemed to have been swept away by a mighty blast of wind. His eye throbbed once more, the pain of it knocking him out, just as the Hokage and a team of med nins arrived on the scene. Kami, what happened here? One of the medics asked, staring at the devastation with a look of awe on his face. Over here, you can stare at the landscaping later. This man's bleeding out. Naruto woke in his least favorite place in the whole world, the hospital. My head is killing me, Kakashi Oji-san. Remembering the fight, Naruto tried to jump out of bed. All he managed, however, was rolling out of bed and straight onto the floor. Naruto choked back a scream as he landed on his broken ribs. He began to drag himself towards the door, desperate to find out what happened to Kakashi. Before he got there, the door opened, and the Hokage stepped into the room. Naruto, what are you doing on the floor? He sighed, and bent down to pick Naruto up. Believe it or not, you're suffering from severe chakra exhaustion. Whatever you did to level the training ground like that sucked your chakra dry. What about Kakashi Oji-san? Naruto croaked. He's alright, isn't he? I tried my best, but my second Daitapa barely did anything. Yes, Naruto, Kakashi will live. We got there in time to seal the wound and give him the blood pills he needed to survive, but it was a close thing. As of right now, Kakashi is suffering from chakra exhaustion, and will have quite the scar on his side. By the end of the week he'll be back to normal. The Hokage carried Naruto and placed him back on the hospital bed. Now, I need you to tell me exactly what happened after Kakashi passed out. Naruto explained what had happened. About the pain in his eye, the tears of blood, how he pulled Kakashi to him, and how he then blew away Zabuza. Well, the Hokage said when Naruto was done, that explains the damage to the chakra pathways around your eye. Several of the smaller ones burst, damaging the capillaries that fed your eye. Whatever that technique was, you overloaded it. I recommend that you practice controlling the technique somewhere that can afford to be damaged, like the newly cleared training ground 0. He was, of course, referring to the quarter-mile arc on the edge of training ground 7 that Naruto had cleared. Half a mile from training ground 0, the trees, rocks, and dirt had landed in a large tangled pile of debris. Suddenly, a pale fist clutching a large sword broke through the detritus that had buried him. Pulling himself out from under the debris, Zabuza staggered off, as fast as he could move, using his sword as a crutch. Okay, no one told me the brat could do that, that's way outside my contract parameters. If I ever see that pink-haired banshee again, I'm slitting her from neck to navel and dumping her body in the street. Unwrapping the bandages around his face, Zabuza used them to bind his side. Maybe I should go back to Kurigakure, find some people with a Kekkei Genkai, and set up a rebellion now, he grumbled, turning around to look at the devastation his blonde target had caused. I mean, Yugura certainly can't cause that much damage just by clapping, I hope. Grumbling under his breath about overpowered midgets, Zabuza staggered away from Konoha. If I never see that blonde midget again, it'll be too soon. Much to their mutual displeasure, Kakashi and Naruto had to spend the rest of the week in the hospital. Needless to say, when Jiraiya returned, he was less than pleased with what had happened. Vowing to make both their lives miserable for at least the next 6 months, Jiraiya demoted Kakashi from fellow instructor to student, and expressly forbade him from using his Sharingan until Jiraiya said so. Jiraiya had claimed that Kakashi's reliance on his Sharingan's ability to predict his opponent's moves, and as easy way to learn new moves, would get him killed. Jiraiya had assigned Kakashi 8 hours of ninjutsu practice a day. He gave Kakashi a list of ninjutsu and only allowed him to practice one move at a time until Kakashi could perform the jutsu in his sleep. Only then was he allowed to practice the next jutsu on the list. Much to Naruto's dismay, Jiraiya added another 2 hours of practice to his day, as well as dropping his genjutsu training. Naruto's genjutsu ability had plateaued. He could at least recognize and break most basic genjutsus, but his control was still so horrible that actually using any genjutsu was beyond him. His schedule was now 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, physical exercise and taijutsu training. 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, chakra control exercises. 2 o'clock to 2:30, lunch. 2:30 to 4:30, ninjutsu practice. 4:30 to 6:30, fuinjutsu training. 6:30 to 7 o'clock, dinner. 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock practice with his eye's unusual abilities. Jiraiya was still unsure as to what Naruto's eye actually did. At first he thought it had something to do with high-level wind control, but until Naruto was able to actually perform the move without leveling a city block's worth of terrain, Jiraiya couldn't be sure what exactly it did. The next 6 months were rather uneventful. Naruto's taijutsu increased by leaps and bounds. In the end, they hadn't found a style really suited to him, but trained him in several different styles that he felt comfortable with. During spars, he would change styles on the fly. The randomness of his mixed styles worked well with the Naruto's unpredictable behavior. His chakra control, while still poor, was advanced enough for the water walking exercise. Much to Naruto's dismay, Jiraiya had refused to teach him any new jutsu until he had demonstrated the ability to perform each jutsu he knew flawlessly with exactly the same amount of power 30 times in a row. Naruto could barely make it to 10. But where Naruto's training was paying off the most was his skill with seals. His homemade explosive tags packed almost as much power as the ones you could buy at most ninja supply stores, and his storage seals, while nowhere near as good as Jiraiya's, took up less space and held more than they did before. Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 13 days ago. Naruto was excited. Tomorrow was his first day at the academy, and this morning Jiraiya had decided that Naruto was ready for the secret skill that would help Naruto train while he was at school. Okay Naruto, let's try one more time before bed, you almost got it the last time. Unfortunately it looked like he sucked at it. But I thought it was a cool jutsu. I suck at clones. How much chakra are you putting into it? Jiraiya had figured that Naruto's overabundance of chakra would make learning this jutsu easy. As little as I can, just like with the normal bunshin. Why? Because, if you were paying any attention, you'd have realized that I said this was a chakra-intensive jutsu. Go ahead and use as much chakra as you want. Jiraiya expected that Naruto could pull off 3 or 4 clones at a time, so telling him to go all out wouldn't cause a problem. Boy was he wrong. Naruto was excited. Tomorrow was his first day at the academy, and this morning Jiraiya had decided that Naruto was ready for the secret skill that would help Naruto train while he was at school. Okay Naruto, let's try one more time before bed, you almost got it the last time. Unfortunately, it looked like he sucked at it. But I thought it was a cool jutsu. I suck at clones. How much chakra are you putting into it? Jiraiya had figured that Naruto's overabundance of chakra would make learning this jutsu easy. As little as I can, just like with the normal bunshin. Why? Because, if you were paying any attention, you'd have realized that I said this was a chakra-intensive jutsu. Go ahead and use as much chakra as you want. Jiraiya expected that Naruto could pull off 3 or 4 clones at a time, so telling him to go all out wouldn't cause a problem. Boy was he wrong. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Road to Konoha present day. Wait just a second Jiraiya. You taught a 7-year-old the Kage Bunshin. Are you insane? The fact that Tsunade had latched onto this point, instead of say the fact that the kid leveled a quarter mile of terrain by clapping, amused Jiraiya to no end. I never even got to the good part, Haim. Anyways, the kid has a crap load of chakra, the jutsu was practically made for him. Besides, if you'd have let me finish you'd have seen that I was right, Jiraiya mumbled to himself, too right really. Jiraiya-sama, how can one be too right? Shizune had heard Jiraiya murmur to himself. Well, if you'd let me continue telling the story. Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 13 days ago. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. There was a cloud of smoke, and when it cleared, the training ground was filled with copies of Naruto, packed shoulder to shoulder. By Jiraiya's rough calculation, there was almost 1,000 copies of the young blonde. Blinking in surprise, Jiraiya said, well kid, you certainly have a lot of potential. Road to Konoha present day. Surely you're exaggerating, Jiraiya. 1,000. Tsunade interrupted. I mean, to be able to make that many clones and not die, he'd have to have twice much chakra as you, and that shouldn't even be possible. What do you feed him? No, I'm not. 3 times actually. Apparently it is. Ramen. Lots and lots of ramen. Seriously, the kid can eat 3 times my body weight in one sitting. Now stop interrupting me. You were doing so well before, it's hard to tell a story when you keep getting interrupted. Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 13 days ago. How do you feel, kid? You just did something that not even the Hokage can do. Hell, I couldn't make half as many clones as you did. Really. Once you told me to pump my chakra into it, it was easy. I'm not even that tired. Training with my eye is more tiring than this. Dispel all of the clones but one, and I'll show you the secrets of this technique. After Naruto did as he was told, Jiraiya took the clone a distance away and hid behind a tree with him. Placing his hand on the Naruto clone's shoulder, he said, Naruto, you have the most potential of any ninja I've ever met. Your father would be proud of how much you've grown in such a short time, I certainly am. Then he punched the clone in the face, dispelling it instantly. Walking back to Naruto, he asked, so did you notice any thoof? Naruto had tackled Jiraiya and was currently sobbing into his stomach. After a few moments, Naruto calmed down. Did you really mean it, Ero-sensei? Naruto had finally found out what his sensei did when researching things for his books and refused to call him anything without attaching Ero to it. Blinking as the end of the conversation nudged the joy Naruto felt at his sensei's pride. Naruto started to scowl. Did you really have to punch me so hard? Well, Naruto, what do those two things tell you about this jutsu? Jiraiya questioned Naruto, hoping that the blonde would be able to put two and two together by himself for once. That it only takes one hit to dispel a clone. Seeing Jiraiya's expectant face, Naruto scrunches his own up in his thinking pose. That when a clone dispels, I learn what it did. Jiraiya decided to let that sink in on its own and watch the fireworks. Suddenly Naruto's eyes went wide. That's so cool. Training will be so easy now. Naruto was hopping around in circles doing his victory dance. Still shouting, Naruto continued, I'm going to have so much fun with this. Thank you, Ero-sensei. Naruto had returned to hugging Jiraiya around the middle again. Before you go to school tomorrow, make, I don't know, 400 clones. I'm going to split them into 4 groups and have each group do something different. Now shadow clones can only transfer mental progress, so that means you still have to exercise. You can't make clones do it for you. In fact, I'm upping your physical exercises to 4 hours of exercise and 2 hours of sparring against your clones every day. You need more practice fighting superior numbers. On the bright side, muscle memory is technically mental, so you can learn new styles of taijutsu, but you'll still need to get your actual body used to fighting with them. So the way I'm dividing up your clones is 100 for taijutsu practice, 100 for ninjutsu practice, 100 for fuinjutsu practice, and 100 for your nature transformation practice. It is the first step in being able to truly master a jutsu. At the moment, Kakashi will help you with lightning and water, but wind users are really rare here in Konoha. I'm not sure the one that I know of, who still lives here at least, is interested in teaching you, so you might have to figure it out on your own. Sorry. Now go to bed, it's late and you have your first day at the academy tomorrow. Road to Konoha present day. You taught him nature transformation at 7. How many Jonin level techniques does he know? Tsunade decided that she shouldn't be surprised by what Naruto had learned, or how fast he learned it. Yeah, it's actually part of a new teaching method I was experimenting with. First, I teach a single elemental jutsu of the element that they have an affinity for. Then I drill it into them until they have it down perfect so that they have an understanding of what the element they're trying to master feels like. Then, I teach them pure nature transformation, then a couple of more advanced ninjutsu, with a more complicated shape transformation, and when they master those, I teach them pure shape transformation. Jiraiya continued walking, letting Tsunade reach the inevitable conclusion by herself. You mean, you taught him Rasengan? Has he mastered it? Has he perfected it yet? Smirking, Jiraiya replied, well, you'll just have to wait and see. I hate you sometimes, Jiraiya. Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 12 days ago. Naruto was so excited he barely slept. As soon as his alarm rang, he leapt out of bed and pulled on his trademark orange jumper. Do you really have to wear that much orange, Kit? Ignoring Kurama, Naruto packed his stuff and ran to Jiraiya's room. Ero-sensei, it's time to wake up. Come on, wake up. Grumbling, Jiraiya got out of bed and began to get dressed. Quiet down, brat. You'll wake the whole damn neighborhood. Still half asleep, Jiraiya staggered out of his room. Meet me at training ground 0. Make your clones and wait for me, I'll be there in a few minutes. Naruto got there in 2 minutes flat. He made his clones, separated them into 4 groups and began pacing the training ground, waiting for his sensei to show up. After 5 minutes he was planning on shouting at Jiraiya. After 10 minutes of waiting he wanted to kill him instead. Sorry I'm late, brat, I couldn't find your present. Naruto immediately forgot his plans of vengeance. Present. He seemed to teleport across the training ground, stopping directly in front of Jiraiya, eyes shining like the sea. Did you say present? Naruto held his hands out expectantly. Sometimes I forget you're not even 8 yet, brat. Placing a smallish rectangular box in Naruto's hands, he said, open it up, I'm sure you'll love it, it's very useful. Naruto opened the box. Inside was a dark blue headband holding a pair of silver-framed goggles. Very useful things. Goggles, keeps things out of your eyes, like wind, water, and dust. Plus you can wear them like a Hittite, which is good practice for when you become a real ninja. And look here, see that? Touch that seal and it activates the built-in telescopic lenses, neat, huh? Seeing tears in Naruto's eyes, Jiraiya thought Naruto didn't like the present. Sorry, if you don't like them I can return them and get. Naruto cut him off and gave him a large hug, strapping them on as soon as he was done. Thanks, Gigi, it's the best present anyone ever gave me. Giving Naruto's hair a friendly ruffle, he pushed Naruto's shoulder, get going. I'll get your clones started. You don't want to be late for your first day, do you? Smiling widely Naruto ran off, waving over his shoulder, bye Ero-sensei. I'll see you after class today. Naruto made it to the academy with plenty of time to spare. In fact, he was one of the first to make it to the academy. There was a quiet girl with black-blue hair in the back, who was watching Naruto without him realizing it, a boy in a fur-lined coat in the middle, who was currently asleep, and in the front there was a boy, whose dark hair looked like it had landed on his head, who was clearly brooding. Sitting in the window seat next to him Naruto said, lighten up hair, it's the first day in the academy. You should be happy. HN. Come on. Smile. Aren't you happy? HN. I don't know about you, but I've been looking forwards to this day since I was 4. HN. You know it's amazing how many uses for HN you have. You're a wonderful conversationalist. Go away, you orange freak. Naruto pretended to fall off of his chair. Kami. Don't scare me like that. I thought you were a mute. My name's Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. I'm going to be Hokage one day, believe it. What's your name, hair? Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha, aren't you from the clan with the spinning eye thing? I heard your eyes can see chakra and use it to predict people's moves. Is that true? That sounds so cool. I wish my eye did something like that, it just makes things blow up most of the time. Ignoring you won't work, will it? Nope. Jiraiya Ero-sensei says I'm the most stubborn person he has ever met. In the back, the quiet girl giggled. Fine. Yes, my clan possesses the Sharingan, and yes, it can see other people's chakra, but I don't know from personal experience, now go away. Naruto. Is that you? A voice Naruto hadn't heard in almost a year called from the front classroom door. Looking up Naruto saw his old friends Nara Shikamaru and Akamichi Choji. Shikamaru strolled over to Naruto, at what those who knew the lazy Nara would call a dead sprint. Where were you for the last 10 months? I haven't seen you since before your birthday. Stuff happened on my birthday, I'll tell you the story later. It's complicated and we don't have time right now. Turning to Choji, Naruto blinked at his friend's new headwear. Choji, why are you wearing your underwear on your head? What? I'm not. It's a bandana. But Naruto wasn't paying attention anymore. The prettiest girl he had ever seen had just walked into the room. She had long pink hair and large jade green eyes. She was wearing a knee-length, short-sleeved red dress, slid up to the waist on one side, over dark green leggings that ended just below her knees. Naruto was in front of her before anyone could blink. You're pretty, what's your name? The quiet girl frowned at this. She had hoped the blonde would notice her. You think I'm pretty? The pink-haired girl looked mildly surprised at this. What about my forehead? It's huge. Naruto said, turning his head sideways. I didn't notice it. My name's Haruno Sakura, nice to meet you. Smiling Sakura held out her hand for Naruto to shake. He's not half bad, Sakura thought. He's no Sasuke-kun, but at least he thinks I'm pretty. Alright class, listen up. Called a new voice, which belonged to the tallish man with black hair, done up in a spiky ponytail, wearing the standard dark blue shinobi uniform, with the sleeves rolled up to mid-forearm, and a green, Chunin flak jacket. I said listen up. The noise level in the class dropped immediately. My name is Yumino Iruka. I'll be your sensei for the next 4 years. This guy, he pointed to a similarly dressed ninja with silver hair covered by a bandana, is Mizuki. He's the secondary instructor for this class. Class begins now. Naruto was never so bored in his life. Iruka-sensei seemed nice enough, but his lectures on ninja history were boring and he knew everything Iruka had to say about chakra theory. There were a few times he wanted to correct Iruka's take on chakra theory, but Naruto had realized that Iruka was dumbing it down for the kids who had never heard about it before. Finally the bell for lunch rang and Naruto ran off to buy himself lunch. Heading to the outdoor eating area, Naruto saw Shikamaru and Choji and headed to sit with them. Hey guys, what's up? Nothing, said Shikamaru. Nom nom. Choji was eating and unable to speak. Oh, hey Sakura-chan. Naruto say the pink-haired girl walking in their general direction, waving her over he said, do you want to sit with us? Sure. Thank you Naruto-san. Just Naruto is fine Sakura-chan. Hey Naruto, mind telling us why you went missing for almost a year? Shikamaru asked. We were worried. Well, I tried to find you on my birthday but a mob attacked me. No way. Really? Choji looked at Naruto with shock. Why would a mob attack you? A mob attacked him. Sakura thought. Oh, no. He seemed so nice. Don't tell me he's the reason. It's complicated, and technically a secret, Naruto said in between mouthfuls of food. Well, what happened? Choji and I were looking all over the place for you for months. You could have told us where you were. Sore agck. Naruto had thought his food tasted a little funny but now he couldn't breathe. Naruto. What's wrong? Choji asked of the gasping blonde. Kami. Someone get a nurse, he's turning green. Sakura shouted. Naruto had started foaming at the mouth. Shikamaru noticed the slightly green tinged foam. I think he's been poisoned. Road to Konoha present day. He was poisoned on his first day at the academy. Tsunade was furious that someone would try to kill a 7-year-old 3 times in less than a year. Yeah, wasn't the last time either, the brat's made of iron. How could someone do something like that? Shizune used poisons in battle but she would never poison a child. She couldn't believe someone would do it not once, but multiple times. We managed to catch one of the perpetrators eventually. It was the same one who hired Zabuza. You said one of there was more than one. Like I said, the only reason I haven't raised Konoha myself yet is because the brat likes it for reasons even I can't fathom at the moment. Jiraiya-sama, what happened next? Well, Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 12 days ago. Naruto woke slowly. His mouth felt like someone poured glue down it. Water. He gasped. Here you go kid. Naruto turned his head to see Jiraiya sitting next to him, a thunderous scowl on his face. I came as soon as your clones dispelled. Well, that explained Naruto's splitting headache. Someone put enough poison in your food to kill the entire school. Naruto's eyes bugged out. How'd I live? Apparently it wasn't enough to kill you. Your stomach must be lined with iron. I helped Kit. Thanks Kurama. I owe you one. Naruto sent back. Kurama says he helped. I guess he would. Regardless, tell him I said thanks. Jiraiya walked towards the door. I have things to take care of. It's late. Get some more rest. You'll need it for class tomorrow and you'll have to make some extra clones to catch up with your training. K. Good night Arrow Sensei. Good night brat. Konoha. 4 years, 10 months, 11 days ago. Naruto. What are you doing here? The medics said they didn't think you'd make it. There was supposed to be enough poison to kill 100 people in your food. Choji was surprised to see Naruto, here first thing in the morning, looking as energetic as he always did. Yeah Naruto, I was with the medics when they were pumping your stomach, you should be dead. Sakura was glad to see Naruto alive. You really are troublesome, aren't you? Despite his choice of words, Shikamaru was glad to see his friend alive. In the back of the classroom, Hyuga Hinata rubbed her puffy eyes. She had cried herself to sleep last night, thinking Naruto had been killed, but here he was right in front of her, laughing and joking like he did yesterday, like nothing had happened. She pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Oi, but, what did I miss yesterday? Naruto plopped onto the seat he had sat in yesterday, right next to Uchiha Sasuke. But, Sasuke couldn't believe someone would call anyone that, let alone him, the last of the Uchiha. Have you looked in a mirror lately? So, what did I miss? Why you see can look a at my n notes, I if why you like. Naruto turned to look at the speaker. It was the quiet girl from the back of the class. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. What's yours? Hyuga. Hinata. Hinata managed to stutter out, while slowly turning red. Thanks Hinata-chan. Hey, are you feeling alright? You're bright red. Do you have a fever? Naruto placed a hand on her forehead, causing the shy girl to pass out. Oh no. Is she alright? Was she poisoned too? You really are an idiot, aren't you, Fishcake? Sasuke decided that if the orange idiot was going to give him an insulting nickname, he would return the favor. What are you talking about? She passed out. That can't be normal. Someone needs to get her to the nurse. She'll be fine, Fishcake. Fine then, I'll take her to the nurse myself, but. Naruto picked Hinata up and carried her, bridal style, to the nurse's office. Partway there Hinata woke up. Is Naruto-kun cc carrying me? She thought. You okay Hinata-chan? You worried me, Naruto asked Hinata when he felt her stir. Hinata promptly passed out again. Huh, she must be really sick. Hinata came back to class just before the second lesson started. Naruto handed her her notebook and a piece of paper covered in writing. Here's your notebook Hinata, and here's a copy of my notes. I hope you are feeling better now. Not trusting herself to speak, Hinata nodded her head and went back to her seat. It was lunchtime and Naruto, Shikamaru, Choji, and Sakura were all sitting together again. How are you feeling today, Naruto? Sakura asked the hyperactive blonde. Should you even be here today? I mean, yesterday you were poisoned, shouldn't you be getting some rest? My stomach's made of iron. It'll take more than a little poison to put me down. Naruto, there was more than a little poison in your food yesterday. Shikamaru gave Naruto a pointed look. Did you do anything to make sure it doesn't happen again? Yeah, my lunch is from home and I sealed it in a storage seal, locked with a blood seal. I'd like to see them open it. Naruto twisted the top off of a bottle of water. Wait, Naruto, where'd you get that water from? Sakura asked, worried about her new friend. But it was too late. Naruto had gulped down the entire bottle, and was already turning green. You bought it from the cafeteria, didn't you? It was poisoned, wasn't it? How stupid can you be? But it was sealed. I thought it would be safe. I'll be right back. Naruto rushed to the bathroom and proceeded to be heartily sick. Naruto managed to stagger out to the academy training grounds just in time for afternoon classes, today's being taijutsu, followed by weapons practice before going back inside for Naruto's least favorite class, chakra theory. Naruto-kun doesn't look good again. Did someone poison him again? Hinata wondered. He's still here. If it was me, I'd use being poisoned as an excuse to go home, the lazy Nara mumbled. Wow, Naruto's tough. I wonder how he does it. Choji was impressed by the blonde's resilience. Mizuki waved Naruto over to him. Okay Naruto, since you missed yesterday, I'll teach you the basics of the academy-style taijutsu. Here, take this stance. Mizuki demonstrated the technique correctly, but with a clearly sloppy base stance of the academy style. Sensei, your form is sloppy, your feet are too close together, and your arms are too far apart. You should do it like this. Naruto demonstrated the correct stance, his feet exactly the right distance apart and his arms in the perfect position. He could have been a picture from a taijutsu scroll. Damn, I guess I can't sabotage this part of his education. Mizuki thought to himself. Well, Mizuki sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. It's been years since I used the academy style and this is my first year as an academy instructor. How'd you get so good at the academy style? Your form's even better than Aruka's. Aro-sensei taught me. I spent 2 hours a day for the past year drilling in it, and it's pretty simple really. I know a few other styles, but I'm not as good at them. Naruto, why do you call your sensei a pervert? Because he is one. His hobby is peeking on girls at the hot springs. He has no shame. So I call him Aro-sensei, and I'll keep doing it until he stops. Mizuki's sweat dropped at this and decided that he really didn't want to know, a move that he would regret in the long run. If you really are better than me at the academy style, why don't you help some of the other students? Iruka interrupted Mizuki and Naruto. Haruno Sakura needs some help, so does Aburame Shino. Okay Iruka-sensei. Naruto cheered, and rushed off to help Sakura. The rest of the month went by like this. Naruto was poisoned in a variety of ways. Sometimes they'd manage to get to his food, other times it was poisoned pins stuck in his school bag, once it was a blow dart to the back of his neck. Despite being continuously sick, Naruto refused to give up. In the afternoons Naruto would help those who were having difficulty with the academy style, and then he would spar with Iruka-sensei, or occasionally Mizuki-sensei. He, Shikamaru, Choji, and Sakura had become good friends, until one day. Konoha. 4 years, 9 months, 10 days ago. It was lunchtime when it happened. Naruto, Sakura, Shikamaru, and Choji were all eating together. Hey, Naruto, you never did tell us what happened on your birthday that made you disappear like that, Shikamaru reminded the blonde of the subject they were discussing before he was poisoned the first time. So, are you going to tell us or not? Well, I was attacked by a drunken mob during the festival. Naruto began, but was interrupted by Sakura. Festival. Sakura was worried. Something terrible had happened to her during the festival that celebrated the defeat of the Kyuubi. Naruto, just when is your birthday? October 10th. Why? Oh, Kami, please tell me I'm having a nightmare. Sakura thought, it can't be him, he's too nice for it to be his fault, please let it be someone else. Anyways, I was attacked by this drunk mob, and they chased me all over Konoha. I had to jump, fall, off of a roof to escape from them at one point, but they caught me when I ran into a dead-end alley. Sakura was terrified of what he might say next, and Naruto, what happened next? Nobody seemed to notice her stutter. Well, the bad men had cornered me and I really thought I was going to die. In his mind Kurama interrupted him, Kit, you weren't even awake at the time. Ignoring Kurama for the moment, Naruto continued his story, but the Hokage and Jiraiya of the Sannin saved me. I can't really remember what they did, cause I passed out from blood loss before Gigi finished talking, but I bet it was super cool. I can't believe you. How could you? Tears streaming down her face, Sakura stood up. I never want to talk to you again. I can't believe you pretended to be my friend, you murderer. Sakura was heartbroken to believe that he was the monster that was responsible for her father's death. She fled, sobbing, hiding in the bathroom stall with tears streaming down her face as she thought, why did it have to be him? He was so nice to me. Was it all some sick plot to hurt me as much as he could? Sakura didn't return until after Naruto's 8th birthday came and went. And when he saw her again, she gave him the cold shoulder, pretending he didn't exist. Instead of hanging out with Shikamaru, Choji and Naruto, she joined the other girls, except Hinata, in fawning over Sasuke. Konoha. 4 years, 8 months, 21 days ago. I don't see what's so cool about, but why are the girls all over him? Naruto asked a few weeks after the incident, as Naruto called it. Probably because he's dark and mysterious, and Naruto, even you can't deny he's strong. He beats you 6 times out of every 10 in taijutsu practice and you're better than the teachers. Shikamaru pointed out. What does Sakura-chan see in him? Naruto pouted, ignoring Shikamaru. I spoke with Ino. Apparently Sakura's father was part of the mob that attacked you. I know, I feel terrible, but it's not my fault. I didn't ask to be nearly murdered on my 7th birthday. I even apologized to her, but she won't listen to me. It's troublesome, but all you can do is wait. Give her time, I'm sure she'll want to speak with you again. As Shikamaru was speaking, the bell rang for the next class. Come on, Naruto, it's time for class, maybe you can take some of your frustrations on Sasuke's haired face. Good idea, Shika. Beating butt always makes me feel better. Grinning like a maniac, Naruto sped off. Troublesome blondes. Once again, Naruto was Sasuke's sparring partner. After the first week, no one in the class really wanted to fight either of them while using the academy style. Iruka and Mizuki could beat both of them, but only while using their preferred taijutsu styles. Yo, but ready to get your kicked? Naruto taunted, while bouncing lightly in place. Naruto had gotten quite good at understanding Sasuke's lack of speech. This one meant something along the lines of, you won't get the chance to touch me, fishcake. Is that so? But bet you 50 Ryo I get first blood. Or as Naruto heard it, you're on. Soon as the match started, they fell into the familiar pattern of kicks, punches, spins, jumps, and dodges. They sparred so often that they knew each other's moves almost by heart. Naruto was so familiar with Sasuke's interceptor fist style that he felt he could recreate it on his own, while Sasuke, as strange as it sounds, understood how Naruto's mind worked so that he was able to predict 75% of Naruto's moves and dodge the other 25%. Why are you always so emo, but? You're the top in the class in almost everything, all the girls love you, and if you have even the slightest difficulty with something, Mizuki is over here in a heartbeat to help you with it. Naruto had been wondering why Sasuke was always so depressed, but whenever he tried to find out, he got responses like, none of your business, demon. And, why, so you can kill him too? You mean you don't know? My family is dead. I'm the last Uchiha. We were once the largest clan in Konoha. Sasuke answered, scowling in between blows. My family's dead too. I'm the last Uzumaki. There were so many of us 30 years ago. We had our own village. It was raised during the Third Shinobi War. Only my mother survived. And she died an hour after I was born. Naruto understood the pain of being alone, but he couldn't understand why Sasuke let the pain overwhelm him. Sasuke had so much good in his life, why did he ignore it? Was your family murdered? Mine was killed right in front of me. By someone I trusted. There were tears in Sasuke's eyes by now. Well, technically my family was murdered right in front of me by someone I trust, but I was a newborn when it happened, and he was under a genjutsu when he killed my parents. At this point Kurama interjected, ah, you trust me? Naruto sent back a mental nod, not trusting himself to split his attention 3 ways during this match. So, I guess I don't know exactly how you feel, but I know enough. Naruto paused while he trip-kicked Sasuke, finally catching him off guard. To tell you, he continued while punching his downed opponent before he could get back up, that, yeah, your life sucked, but at least you haven't spent the last year dodging assassination attempts daily. Sasuke had gotten up, his lip bleeding, all tactics forgotten. He charged Naruto with a mad look in his eyes. Look, Sasuke. Naruto was now effortlessly parrying Sasuke's enraged attacks. Yeah, your parents were killed, but at least you got to know them. I never met my parents. Sure, they got taken away from you, but you got, what? 6 years with them. I got an hour. An hour I can't even remember. Now Naruto was on the verge of crying. You gotta look past the pain, Sasuke, remember the good times. And if you ever want someone to talk to about it, come to me, I'll be there for you when you need me. Sasuke stopped his mad attacks. He pulled something out of his pocket, pegged Naruto between the eyes with it and stormed off. Rubbing his forehead, Naruto bent down to see what Sasuke had thrown at him before he left. It was a 50 Ryo coin. After the incident with the 50 Ryo coin, Naruto's relationship with Sasuke turned into a full-blown rivalry. Each trying to prove that they were the better ninja, they sought to outdo each other in everything. Their taijutsu spars were the stuff of legends in the academy. Eventually it became impossible for the teachers to declare a victory, although Naruto and Sasuke seemed to have some way of keeping score themselves. The battles would start as soon as the bell rang and only end when class was over. As time went on, their individual strengths and weakness became clear. Sasuke was much faster than Naruto, and every fight he seemed to get faster still. After a few months it was rare for Naruto to get the first hit, and by the end of the year, Naruto would only land 3 or 4 blows. But that was all Naruto needed to land, because what Naruto lacked in speed, he made up in raw physical power. Sasuke was good at reading his opponent's movements, even those of someone as unpredictable as Naruto. Naruto was good at improvising, making up complex plans on the fly, changing from one plan of attack to another as soon as Sasuke figured out what he was doing. Naruto was a stamina monster. After the first 3 fights where Naruto beat Sasuke simply by outlasting him, Sasuke worked on becoming more and more efficient in his attacks and defense, always moving the least amount needed to avoid a blow, never throwing a punch or kick unless he was sure that it would do some damage, or as a part of a plan. Sasuke took his, comparatively, tiny pool of stamina and stretched it as far as it would go. In the second year at the academy, they began learning the basics of ninjutsu. Naruto had a lot more experience than Sasuke, especially when it came to actual jutsu, but Sasuke was a natural, his fingers longer, thinner and more flexible than Naruto's. He quickly used his natural speed and flexibility to catch up to, and then usurp Naruto in terms of hand-seal fluidity, allowing him to theoretically fire more jutsu off faster than Naruto. Naruto's physical stamina carried over to his chakra as well. While Sasuke could cast more in a short period of time, Naruto could keep casting long after Sasuke died of chakra exhaustion. There were 2 areas that Sasuke had a clear lead over Naruto in: Genjutsu, which Naruto lacked all but the most basic skills in, and the actual schoolwork. Naruto was still having difficulty with written tests. He would read questions wrong, put answers down in the wrong spot, or just completely blank out. The fact that Sasuke had him beat in these 2 things drove Naruto nuts, and ensured that Sasuke kept the number 1 spot in the class. Sakura had changed the most, but not in a good way. After the shock of finding out that Naruto had a hand in her father's death, she seemed listless for weeks, before seemingly deciding that the best way to get Naruto back for the pain he caused her was to devote herself to his eternal rival Sasuke, becoming one of his many fangirls, always cheering the loudest when Naruto lost, punching him if he tried to talk to her, and ignoring him the rest of the time. It was official, Hinata hated Sakura. At first it was just a little jealousy, because Naruto liked Sakura and barely seemed to notice her, but after Sakura trampled Naruto's heart in the mud, she wanted to kill her. If only she had his confidence, maybe there was something she could do about that. Shikamaru and Choji were largely unchanged, still the same middle-of-the-road average. And neither of them were really interested in being more than that. Konoha. 3 years, 4 months, 2 days ago. Sasuke was frustrated. No matter how hard he tried, Naruto was always right behind him, always pushing, never letting him rest on his laurels. And worst of all, despite their similar painful pasts, he was always cheerful. It drove Sasuke mad. Why were they so different, and how was Naruto so strong if he was so happy? Sasuke had given up everything in his quest for vengeance, and Naruto seemed dead set on proving that you could be happy and strong at the same time. So Sasuke found himself stuck following Naruto around in an attempt to find out just what Naruto's secret was. So far Naruto had just wandered around Konoha for an hour, only stopping to eat a prodigious amount of ramen. Is this all he does? How is he so strong if he doesn't actually train? Sasuke mumbled under his breath. It's not his training time for another 37 minutes and 45 seconds. Sasuke nearly jumped a foot when he heard a soft voice directly behind him. Hinata, are you following me? No, Naruto. Something she had said just clicked in Sasuke's mind. I have to say, the fact that you Naruto's schedule down to the second is creepy. He has the same schedule every day, it's not hard. Normally you stutter a lot more. Naruto isn't HH here, Hinata said, blushing crimson. I see, so what does he do next? He goes to training ground zero. Follow me. Hinata led Sasuke after Naruto. Sasuke was impressed, she followed him like a ghost. Sasuke wasn't even sure that he would ever notice her if she was following him. Eventually they came to a blasted wasteland that stretched from one edge of Training Ground 7 to a ravine almost half a mile away. The fact that Sasuke couldn't remember anything like this being on the maps of Konoha he had seen was lost by what filled the training ground. There were hundreds of Narutos grouped into 10s and 20s, each group doing something different. So, what did we learn today, guys? Naruto spoke to his copies. You all know the drill. Disperse in groups of 10 with 10-second breaks in between. Naruto sat down in a meditative pose as the copies dispersed. Half an hour later, when the last group disappeared in a puff of smoke, Naruto stood up. Oh, so that's what I was doing wrong. Okay, now that that problem's solved, let's get to work on the next bit, yeah. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Once again there were hundreds, if not thousands, of Narutos in the field. Alright guys, get back to work. A Bunshin Jutsu. That's Naruto's worst jutsu. Sasuke stayed the entire time Naruto was there, watching him, trying to figure out what drove him. He came back twice a week. Konoha. 2 years, 11 months, 17 days ago. Uchiha Sasuke was nervous, and he hated being nervous. The civilian council had summoned him to its chambers for an important meeting. But the council wasn't here. Instead of the usual 20 members of the civilian council, there were only 3. At the head of the table sat the 3 elders. In the center was the bandaged Shimura Danzo, whose lone cold eye sent shivers up Sasuke's spine. On his right was the bearded and bespectacled Mitokado Homura. On Danzo's left was the sour-faced Utatane Kaharu. Sasuke couldn't figure out what he'd done to get summoned by the elders. We called you here to discuss your outstanding success in the academy, Danzo began, his voice flat and emotionless. We wish to invite you to join a special subgroup of Anbu. Of course you will graduate at the top of your class, you need not worry about getting the Rookie of the Year award. Kaharu reassured Sasuke. You may take the Chunin exams at later date if you're not satisfied with a field promotion. By joining you are not disqualifying yourself from anything. Homura said in a bland, bored voice. Sasuke blinked in shock. They wanted him to join Anbu. He must be doing something right. Itachi was 13 when he joined Anbu and he was only 9. But, he only really started to get strong because of Naruto. What if it was Naruto that made him strong? Does this offer apply to Uzumaki Naruto as well? Academically he's not that far behind me, and we're pretty evenly matched in terms of skill. He's slightly better at taijutsu while I hold the edge with ninjutsu. If you think I'm worth recruiting, surely Naruto is as well. If his rivalry with Naruto was the secret to his growth, he wouldn't give it up for the world. Unfortunately, no, it does not. And even if it did, his guardian has made his desires very clear to us. Naruto is to stay in the academy until he graduates at a normal age, Danzo answered for the council. His unnaturally cold voice gave Sasuke the creeps. Then I am afraid I must decline your generous offer. What? Kaharu screeched, jumping up from her seat. What does that demon have to do with advancing your career? From the power you so clearly desire. My rivalry with Naruto has taught me a few important lessons. Do you know how he got to be as good as he is? I asked his sensei, Jiraiya-sama, one day, what Naruto's secret was. Do you know what he said? Hard work and lots of it. I followed him one day to see just how hard he trained. Did you know he uses a technique that would kill anyone else to maximize his training? He uses 2000 Kage Bunshin to practice what he knows, and he does this every day before the academy, and he can still outlast me in any chakra-related exercise. The council watched silently as the revenge-obsessed boy raved about his rival. Homura and Kaharu shared a look and a thought, is he gay? Seemingly ignoring the odd looks the council gave him, Sasuke continued, that's one thing I learned, just from watching him, the value of hard work. Before I met him I thought I was a hard worker, but I never seemed to get stronger. After sparring with Naruto on a regular basis and seeing how his strength grew too, I realized something else, something that you want to take away from me. Iron sharpens iron. Without Naruto to push me, I won't get stronger. Sasuke stood up and walked out of the council room. Did he just turn us down? Homura blinked in shock. We really need to remove Naruto if we want to proceed with our plans. Why don't we kill him ourselves? Koharu grumbled. Sure, he seems to be immune to poison, probably because of that damn fox, but I bet he's not immune to beheading. No, that would be too obvious. Then we would have to deal with Jiraiya, and he's already snooping around, Homura pointed out. I will deal with them myself. Danzo's cold voice brought the conversation to an end.